Good day, sir. We are the Group 1 and we will be presenting the Lesson 2 and 3 in Human Resources Management. I am GLORIANNE CABOBOS, your first presenter for this group. Let's begin. Lesson 2, the Analysis and Design of Work. The overview of this lesson are the field of job analysis and job design. Job analysis focus on gathering information for human resource management practices such as selection, training, and etc. While on job design, focus on redesigning existing job to be more efficient or more effective to the job holders. Topic 1. Workflow analysis and organization structure. Workflow design are the process of analyzing tasks for the production and also allocating and assigning tasks to a particular job category or person. Organization structure refers to the stable and formal network of vertical and horizontal interconnection among jobs that constitute the organization. Workflow analysis. This conception of the workflow analysis is to provide the means for the manager to understand all the tasks required. Workflow analysis is to identify, to specify quality and quantity standards, and to analyze the processes and inputs for the producing outputs. There are 3 stages for workflow analysis. First, analyzing work outputs. An output is the product of a work unit. Often can be identifiable object, but also can be a service. For example, the receptionist in a hotel book you a room reservation. Second, analyzing work processes. The activities that a member of a work unit engage in to produce a given output. Every process consists of operating procedures that specify how things should be done, and these procedures includes all the tasks that must be performed in the production of the output. And the final stage, analyzing work inputs. It is to identify the input used in the development of a work unit's product. These units can be broken down into raw materials, equipment, and human skills to perform the task. Raw materials are materials, data, and information needed. Equipments are equipments, facilities, and system needed. And human skills are skills and abilities to perform the task. Organization structure. A cross-sectional overview of the relationship between individuals and units. It has 2 dimensions of structure, centralization and departmentalization. Centralization refers to the decision-making authority by the top organizational chart to being distributed throughout lower levels, while departmentalization refers to work units are grouped based on similarity of workflow. Under also organization structure is the constructional configuration, which has 2 types, functional structure and divisional structure. Functional structure employs a functional departmentalization scheme with high levels of centralization. They tend to identify their department and cannot always be relied on to make decisions, while divisional structure employs a divisional departmentalization scheme with low levels of centralization. They act almost like separate, self-sufficient, semi-autonomous organization. And that's the end of the topic 1. Now we go to topic 2, job analysis. Job analysis is the process of getting detailed information about jobs and building blocks of human resource managers. It requires types of information, and these are selection, performance appraisal, training, job evaluation, career planning, work redesign, and human resource planning. Work redesign. It seeks to resign to make it more efficient or effective. Human resource planning. Analyze an organization's human resource needs in a dynamic environment and develop activities that enable a firm to adapt to change. This planning process requires accurate information about the levels of skills required in various jobs to meet the human resource needs of the strategic plan. Selection identifies the most qualified applicants for employment. Selection is to identify, determine the tasks performed by the individual hired, and the knowledge, skills, and abilities the individual must have to perform the job effectively. Training requires to perform the job effectively. Performance appraisal identify the behavior and results that distinguish effective from ineffective performance. It deals with getting information about how well each employee is performing. Career planning, matching an individual's skills and aspiration with opportunities that may become available in the organization. It allows to guide individuals into jobs which they will succeed or be satisfied. Job evaluation involves assessing the relative dollar value of each job to the organization. Importance of job analysis to line managers. Managers must have detailed information about all the jobs in their work group to understand the workflow process. Job requirements. Understand the job requirements to make an intelligent hiring decision. Responsibility for an individual performing satisfactorily. This requires the manager to evaluate how well a person is performing and giving feedback for improvement. And lastly, responsibility for an individual to perform their tasks safely. Job analysis information. There are two types of nature of information. One, job description. A list of tasks, duties, and responsibilities that a job entails. And second, job specification. A list of the knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics that an individual must have to perform. Knowledge refers to procedural information for successfully performing a task. Skill refers to individual's level of proficiency at performing a task. Ability, a capability of an individual. And other characteristics refers to the personal traits such as one's achievement motivation. Sources of job analysis information. Whatever job analysis method you choose, the process of job analysis entails obtaining information from people familiar with the job. We refer to these people as subject matter experts because they possess deep knowledge of the job. Job analysis method. Position analysis questionnaire. One of the broadest and most well-researched instruments for analyzing jobs. It emphasizes the inputs, processes, relationship, and outputs. It is a standardized job analysis questionnaire containing 194 items. These items represent work behavior, work condition, and job characteristics. They are organized in 6 sessions. First, information input, where and how a worker gets information needed to perform the job. Second, mental processes, the reasoning, decision-making, planning, and information processes activities involved. Third, work output, the physical activities, tools, and devices used by the worker. Fourth, relationship with other person, the relationship with other people required in performing the job. Fifth, job context, physical and social context where work is performed. And lastly, other characteristics, activities, conditions, and characteristics that relevant to the job. And that's the end of the topic 2.
Good day. My name is YVETTE Aguinaldo and I am the second reporter of group number 1. So today I'm going to discuss the dynamic elements of job analysis, topic number 3, which is all about job design. So let's start first by defining what is job design. So job design, it is the process of defining how work will be performed and tasks will be required in a given job. So meaning it is the way the organization or the administration set the duties, tasks, and responsibilities. So it involves what task will be performed, how it will be performed, and when or who will it be performed. To successfully design a job, you must know first the job itself. You must know what are your roles, your responsibilities, your duties, and your tasks, and that is through job analysis. So, if we have job design, of course, we also have job redesign. So, job redesign refers to changing the task or the way work is performed in an existing job. So, job redesign is actually a counterpart of job design because it requires the changes of duties, tasks, and responsibilities. So, in job redesign, all are being reviewed by the manager or the head, and it might be reallocated to the employees because they wanted to improve the productivity and the output of the company. So, there are several approaches that a manager can use in order to design a job. So let's start first with the first approach, which is the mechanistic approach. Mechanistic approach is all about identifying the simplest way to structure works that maximize efficiency. It is also all about reducing complexity of the work. So in mechanistic approach, we are applying here the engineering process. The meaning of engineering process is you are increasing the output of the employees. So it is connected with scientific management. So scientific management is the best statement known here in mechanistic approach. So what is scientific management? So according to scientific management, productivity could be maximized by taking a scientific approach to the process of designing a job. So in short, mechanistic approach is all about improving or increasing the output of the employees by finding the simplest way to perform their job. So that is mechanistic approach. So let's move on to the second approach, which is the motivational approach. So motivational approach focuses on the job characteristics that affect psychological meaning and motivational potential. It views attitudinal variables such as satisfaction as the most important outcomes of job design. In motivational approach, it focuses more on making the job interesting, challenging, and complex to motivate the employees to work effectively and efficiently. So the prescription of motivational approach is to increase the meaningfulness of the jobs through job enlargement, job enrichment, and construction of jobs around social technical system. So in motivational approach, they tend to make the work interesting for the employees so that they will be more encouraged or motivated to work and perform better. In motivational approach, we have the job characteristics model. So the first one is skill variety. So skill variety requires a variety of skills to carry out the task. So it involves the use of the employee's different skills and talents in doing a work. Let's say a particular job requires a different task so that the employee can utilize or use their various talents or skills. So the second characteristic model is task identity. Task identity means completing a whole piece of work from beginning to end. It means you are working on the entire process rather than the portion of it from the beginning after the end to finally came out with a visible outcomes. So next characteristic is autonomy. So autonomy allows an individual to make decisions about the way the work will be carried out. So autonomy is all about the ability of the workers to act or perform on his or her own values and interests. So basically, autonomy means you are allowing or you are giving freedom to your employee to work or do their work on their own. So next characteristic we have is feedback. So feedback, a person receives clear information about performance effectiveness from the work itself. Feedback leads the employees to gain information about their actual performance. It is important that you inform your employees the information that they deserve, or you need to give feedback about the effectiveness of their performance so that they will know if they are improving or not. That's why feedback is important. The next characteristics or the last is the task significance. So it is the important impact on the lives of other people. So the job or the task should impact other people's life in a good way, not just the people inside the company, but also outside the company. So your job must leave a significant value to them. So our next approach is biological approach. So biological approach comes primarily from the science of biomechanics, work physiology, and occupational medicine, and it is usually referred to as ergonomics. So what is ergonomics? So ergonomics concerned with the examining the interface between individual physiological characteristics and the physical work environment. So the main focus of biological approach is all about physical capabilities and limitations of their employees. So they are concerned on the outcomes such as physical fatigues, the aches, pains, and also health complaints. So they eliminate those problems so that the overall condition or the overall work conditions of their company will flow smoothly. So that is biological approach. So our next approach is called perceptual motor approach. This is the last approach. So if the biological approach focuses on physical capabilities and limitations of the persons or the employee, perceptual motor approach focuses on the human mental capabilities and limitations of the employees. So it improves reliability, safety, and user reactions by designing jobs to reduce their information processing requirements. So perceptual motor approach ensures that the human mental capabilities of their employees are not exceeding to avoid mental stress because mental stress affects the performance of an employee. So in perceptual motor approach, they make sure that the human mental capabilities of their employees are not exceeding to avoid mental stress so that the employee will work efficiently and effectively without any problems thinking. So that is perceptual motor approach. Now let's move on to our next lesson, the human resource planning recruitment. Topic number 1, the human resource planning process. So let's start with the first step in planning process, that is forecasting. So forecasting is the attempt to determine the supply of and demand for various types of human resources to predict areas within the organization where there will be future labor shortages or surpluses. So forecasting is like you are predicting what will happen in the future or the prediction of outcomes. So it is used to plan capital expenditure for a new plant and equipment. So why do some company do forecasting? So they do forecasting or they attempt to forecast so that they will know if there will be a labor shortage or surplus in the future. So take a look at this. This is the human resource planning process. So as you can see, you need to forecast the labor demand and labor supply first in order for you to forecast the labor surplus or shortages. After you forecast the labor surplus or shortage, you can now proceed to goal setting and strategic planning. So after setting and planning goal, you may now proceed to
implementation, and evaluation. So we will discuss this further later. So let's start first with determining the labor demand. They are determining the labor demand because it is relevant to their organization's current and future states. So once the job categories or skills are identified, you may now predict the need for people with those skills or in that job category will increase or decrease in the future. So, for example, if the demand for an organization's output increases, the demand for the labor will also increases. It means you need to hire more employees rather, I'm sorry. So if the demands organization's output increases, in order for you to meet that, you need to increase also the labor. So you will demand for more labor so that you will meet those outputs. So that is the importance of determining the labor demand. So another thing that we need to consider is there is this leading indicator. So what is leading indicator? It is an objective measure that accurately predicts future labor demand. So leading indicator is a factor that will give you an idea what will happen to the future. So next, we have determining the labor supply.
Calls for a detailed analysis of how many people are currently in various job categories or who have specific skills within the company. So labor supply is the detailed number of employees who are currently working in a particular company. So the labor supply may change in time, mainly because of termination, promotions, transfers, or voluntary turnover. So there's this one statistical procedure that can be used in identifying labor supply. That is transitional matrices. Transitional matrices is a matrix showing the proportion or number of employees in different job categories at different times. So transitional matrices is very useful because the company may use it for planning the future. If they are planning the future, they can use transitional matrices because transitional matrices shows the probabilities or the movement of the employees from one job to another. So it is very useful if they are going to plan for the future. They can use the transitional matrices. So next we have determining labor surplus or shortages. So labor surplus, actually labor surplus causes unemployment and lack of opportunities for other people because when there is a labor surplus, company has a high amount of employees. It means there are no vacancies. That's why the lack of opportunities are present. While labor shortage, the employers failed to find the suitable employees that will fit in their requirements, and that caused the shortage of employees in a company. So goal setting and strategic planning, the second step in planning process. So it focuses attention on the problem and provide a benchmark for determining the relative success of any programs aimed at redressing a pending labor shortage or surplus. So in this part, it aims to assess the managers to plan accordingly, strategically, or set goals or objectives that will result to a better outcomes. So the goals should be based on the analysis of labor demand and supply, and it must be assessed properly. So this stage is very crucial because you should consider a lot of information that you have gathered in order to came up to a better outcome. So in the past decade, there are a lot of typical response in of the organization in surplus or shortage. So let's discuss what are those responses or what are the traditional responses of the organizations before in surplus and shortages. So the first one is downsizing. So downsizing is the planned elimination of large numbers of personnel designed to enhance organizational effectiveness. So downsizing is a permanent reduction of employees force or the labor, permanent reduction of labor force through terminating unproductive workers. So it is usually associated with failing businesses. So next we have early retirement program and buyout. So it is another popular means of reducing a labor surplus is to offer an early retirement program. So it is a package offered by the employers to their employees who are near their retirement schedule. So it is usually offered with the older workers. So they are compensating them, providing them incentive for them to immediately retire ahead of their retirement schedule. So that is early retirement program and buyout. Next, we have employing temporary workers. So afforded firms the flexibility needed to operate efficiently in the face of swings in the demand for goods and services. Hiring temporary workers to meet their firm's demand and yet to avoid hiring them as a regular employee. So why are they hiring temporary employees? So it is somehow beneficial for them because it avoids or it reduces their overall costings and staff, and also it is their way to try out their potential future hires. So next we have outsourcing, offshoring, and immigration. So let's start first with outsourcing. So outsourcing is an organization's use of an outside organization for a broad set of services. Outsourcing is like you are giving your work to someone else. Like for example, I am a university teacher and I have a lot of loads to do. And then I have a friend who is an encoder at a certain company, but not in my university, in another company or agency. So now I ask her to encode or to help me encode all the data and information of my students. And then I will just pay her after. So that is a form of outsourcing, or that is outsourcing because I am giving my work to other people who are not part of the company I'm working. That is outsourcing. Offshoring is a special case of outsourcing where the jobs that move actually leave one country and go to another. It involves relocations of areas in a company to foreign countries. That is offshoring. Now let's proceed to altering pay and hours. So an example of altering pay and hours. For example, organizations are experiencing labor surplus. So some organizations are avoiding layoff, or layoff means temporary removal of the employees if they can proceed to pay cut or the reducing of the salary of the employee. So it's look like they are giving the employees the two options of being terminated or staying, but the salary is deducted or there is a reduce in their salary. So that is altering pay and hours. So next we have program implementation and evaluation. So the program developed in the strategic choice stage of the process are put into practice in the program implementation stage. So you should develop an in-depth understanding in this part as you are now implementing your plans. And lastly, you are now evaluating them. So in this part, you need to determine if all of the activities are implemented as what they are intended. So that is program implementation and evaluation. So this is the end of my report. Let's now proceed to another topic that will be discussed by another group member.
Hi, I am ANDREI C, and I will discuss the topic 2 of Lesson 3 titled The Human Resource Recruitment. Human resource recruitment Human resource recruitment is not just all about hiring employees that will fill that vacancy in the company, but the goal is hiring someone that will help the company to grow more. Recruiters need to see the full potential and skills of an individual for the betterment of an organization as well as the company. This is where the personal policies comes in. In personal policies, the characteristic of vacancy is more important than recruiting sources when it comes to predicting job choice. Internal versus external recruiting job security. By doing this internal recruiting, this can save time and money on training as the internal applicant will have more knowledge of the organization and culture. It can also promote loyalty and can even improve the morale of the employee as it serves as a reward for existing employees. In addition to that, these are also promoted by due process policies. Employment at will policies. This involves great deal of flexibility for both of employer and employees. For example, employers can change the terms of employment such as wages, benefit plans, and such more, while the employees can change jobs without notice if they choose, although it's generally best to provide 2 weeks notice regardless legal requirements to protect your reputation with future employers. While the due process policies is the opposite policies of employment at will policies, because this policy will go through in legal process that the state must respect all legal rights that owed to a person. And extrinsic and intrinsic rewards. These rewards are kinds of specific shift differentials and other forms of more generic compensating differentials. Image advertising. Organizations often advertise specific vacancies. Sometimes, however, organizations advertise just to promote themselves as a good place to work in general. Now, let's go to the recruitment sources. In this section, we examine the different sources from which recruits can be drawn. First, internal versus external sources. In earlier of this chapter, we just discussed the positive effects that internal recruiting can have on recruits' perception of job security. In this slide, you will see the several good reasons why organizations might decide to recruit externally. Recruiting externally is a good way to strengthen one's own company and weaken one's competitors at the same time. Next is direct applicants and referrals. Direct applicants refers to external candidates who apply directly for a job opening, whether through the company's website or job board or the other source. While referrals may come from internal employees or may come from outside the organization, a recruitment firm, for example, or the job seekers look to friends, relatives, or acquaintances. Advertisements in newspapers and periodicals. Simple as using newspaper and periodicals, but it is a greater expense. Next is electronic recruiting. This refers by using their own web page, organization can highly tune their recruitment message and focus in on specific people. However, there are unique challenges that may affect the recruitment process, like this medium has also been a haven for identity thieves. Public and private employment agencies. The agency makes referrals to the organization at no charge. and these individuals can be interviewed or tested by the employer for potential vacancies. Public employment agencies. Public employment agencies serve primarily the blue-collar labor market. The blue-collar stereotype refers to any worker who engages in hard manual labor, such as construction, mining, and maintenance. While the private employment agencies perform much the same service for the white-collar labor market. White-collar workers are known as suit and tie workers who work in service industries and often avoid physical labor. Being a white-collar and blue-collar often implies belonging to a higher or lower social class, respectively. Next is colleges and universities. This refers to the internship program or job fairs happened inside the university or campus. Evaluating the quality of a source. Because there are few rules about the quality of a given source for a given vacancy, it is generally a good idea for employers to monitor the quality of all their recruitment sources. Yield ratios express the percentage of applicants who successfully move from one stage of the recruitment and selection process to the next. Now, let us know some of the recruiter's background. First is recruiter's functional area. Some studies indicate that applicants find a job less attractive and the recruiter less credible when he is a personal specialist. Second is recruiter's trait. Two traits stand out when applicants' reaction to recruiters are examined. First is being warm, and second is being informative. In general, applicants respond more positively to recruiters who are perceived as warm and informative. Last is recruiter's realism. The recruiter's job is to attract candidates. This is the avoidance of the negative information. After knowing the human resource recruitment and human resource sources, let's go to the topic 3, recruitment metrics. Recruiting metrics. If these metrics are used correctly, it helps to evaluate the recruiting process and whether the company is hiring the right people. Let us know the 17 most recruiting metrics. First is time to fill. Time to fill influenced by the supply and demand ratios for specific jobs, as well as the speed of which recruitment department operates. Time to fill is the great metric for business planning and offers a realistic views for the manager to assess the time it will take to attract a replacement for a departing employee. Second is time to hire. Time to hire measures the time it takes for someone to move through the hiring process once they've applied. This metric also called time to accept. Third is source of hire. This metric helps you to understand where all of your candidates are coming from. The next is first-year attrition. First-year attrition is a key recruiting metric and also indicates hiring success. First-year attrition can be managed and unmanaged. Managed attrition means that the contract is terminated by the employer, while unmanaged means that they leave on their own accord. And the next is quality of hire. Quality of hire is the input for the success ratio. The success ratio is used as input for recruitment utility analysis. This analysis enables you to calculate an ROI different selection instruments. And this is the sample formula. The next is hiring manager satisfaction. In line with quality of hire, hiring manager satisfaction is another recruiting metric that is indicative of successful recruiting metrics. In other words, the candidate is more likely to be a successful hire. Candidate job satisfaction. This is the measurement of a candidate's perception of the company's hiring process. The next is applicants per opening. This is the narrowing the job description and including a number of hard criteria. This could indicate a high demands for job in that particular job. The next is cost per hire. This is the average amount of money you spent on making a hire. Cost per hire consists of multiple cost structures, can be divided by internal and external costs. By quantifying all of them, you can calculate the total recruitment cost. The next is candidate experience. Candidate experience is the perception of a job seeker about an employer based on the interaction during the complete recruitment process. And offer acceptance rate. Offer acceptance rate compares the number of candidates who successfully accepted a job offer with the number of candidates who receive an offer. A low rate is indicative of potential compensation problems. That's a sample formula. And the next is percent of open positions. A high percentage can be indicative of high demand, for example, due to fast growth or low labor market supply. And that's the sample formula. Application completion rate. It compares the number of people who start filling out an application with the number of people who actually submit a complete application. The next is recruitment funnel effectiveness. This aims to prospect interested and candidates engaged throughout. And that's the sample formula for recruitment funnel effectiveness by finding the yield ratio. This is the sample process. The recruiting funnel has changed a lot over the last few years due to advances in HR technologies, so expect this funnel to change over time. Next is sourcing channel effectiveness. It helps to measure the conversion per channel. Sourcing channel cost. This is the amount of money spent on advertisement on those platforms. And this is the sample formula. And then the last additional two are cost of getting to optimum productivity level or OPL, and as simple as the total cost involved in getting someone up to speed. And the last is time to productivity. It is the time between the first day of hiring and the point where the employee fully contributes to the organization. And that's the end of our report. Thank you for listening.